Something has shifted. If you're watching this video right now, you already feel it. There's been a change in the atmosphere between you and someone who once couldn't see past their own perspective. The person who drove you to create distance, who made you feel like you were asking for too much, loving too hard, caring too deeply, is finally waking up to what they lost when you stepped back. And I need you to understand something crucial before we go any further. This isn't about them finally giving you what you always deserved. This is about you recognizing that your decision to pull away was one of the most powerful, self-honoring choices you've ever made. What's happening now is the echo of your courage coming back to meet you. Let me be clear about what I'm seeing for those of you who are meant to hear this message. This person, whether it's a romantic partner, a close friend, or someone you built significant connection with, they're not just missing you in that surface-level way where they text when they're bored. No, they're experiencing something much deeper. They're having those moments where they'll be in the middle of their day, doing something completely unrelated, and suddenly they're overwhelmed by the absence of you. They'll see something that would have made you laugh, and instead of smiling, they feel this hollow ache because they can't share it with you anymore. If this is resonating with your experience right now, leave a heart emoji in the comments. I want you to know you're not alone in this journey, and your presence here matters. Their understanding isn't intellectual anymore, it's visceral. They're feeling the weight of your absence in their body. That comfort they took for granted? Gone. That unconditional support you offered? They're discovering how rare it actually was. The way you love them, fully, deeply, without holding back. They're realizing that kind of love doesn't come around twice in a lifetime. And here's what makes this moment so significant. They're not just understanding why you pulled away. They're understanding who they were when you had to make that choice. They're seeing their own behavior with painful clarity, the dismissiveness, the taking for granted, the way they made you feel like your needs were inconvenient, the times they chose comfort over commitment, ease over effort, their ego over your heart. This isn't a casual realization they're having. This is the kind of awakening that happens at 3 in the morning when sleep won't come because regret is too loud. This is the kind of understanding that makes them review every conversation, every moment they chose wrong, every opportunity they had to show up differently and didn't. For anyone watching who has supported this channel through Super Thanks, thank you. Your generosity allows me to continue creating content that speaks to these profound moments in your journey. I see you and I'm grateful. But here's what I need you to hear before we dive deeper. Their awakening, as significant as it is, doesn't erase what happened. Their readiness to fight now doesn't change the fact that you had to walk away to preserve your own peace. Their newfound clarity doesn't automatically mean reconciliation is your path. This video isn't about convincing you to go back. It's about helping you understand what's happening so you can move forward with wisdom, not reaction. Because yes, they're ready to fight now. They're ready to prove themselves. They're ready to be the person they should have been all along. But the real question isn't whether they're ready. It's whether you are being called to re-engage, or whether this moment of their awakening is actually the universe's way of giving you closure and confirmation that walking away was exactly right. Stay with me through this entire video, because what I'm about to share will help you navigate this delicate moment with clarity. We're going to explore what's really happening beneath the surface, why this shift is occurring now, and most importantly, how to honor both their transformation and your own boundaries as you decide what comes next. This goes so much deeper than you might think. Let's talk about what's actually unfolding in their inner world right now, because understanding this will help you make sense of everything you're feeling and experiencing. The person who once made you feel like you were overreacting for having needs, they're now sitting with the full weight of what it means to lose someone who genuinely loved them. And I want to paint a picture of what this looks like, because it's important you understand this isn't superficial regret. This is fundamental recalibration. They'll be going about their routine. Maybe they're at work. Maybe they're out with other people. And someone will say something or do something. And they'll think that's not how they would have responded. They're comparing everyone to you now. The way you listened. The way you cared about details. The way you remembered things that mattered to them. They're discovering that what they thought was common is actually extraordinary. Picture them in conversation with someone new. Someone they maybe even thought could replace you or fill the void. And this person is nice enough, interesting enough, but there's no depth. The conversation stays on the surface. There's no real seeing happening. And they realize you didn't just hear their words, you understood their heart. You could read between the lines. You knew what they needed before they asked. You paid attention in ways they never acknowledged. They're experiencing loss in layers. First, they lost your presence. The daily contact, the inside jokes, the comfort of knowing you were there. But now they're losing something deeper, the possibility of you. The future they didn't know they were building in the back of their mind. The version of life where you were part of their story, long term. That's dissolving, and they're feeling it like grief. Type awakening if you can feel this shift happening in your situation. Your word here is confirmation for others who need it. Here's what's different about this moment compared to other times they might have reached out or expressed regret. They're not coming from neediness or ego or the discomfort of being alone. They're coming from genuine recognition. The difference is profound. Before, if they reached out, it was often because they missed what you did for them. The support, the attention, the way you made their life easier. Now, they're missing who you are, your essence, your spirit. The specific way you move through the world. They're not thinking, I miss having someone to talk to at night. They're thinking, I miss her, I miss him, I miss the irreplaceable presence that was them. This is why their energy feels different if they've attempted to reconnect. There's a humility that wasn't there before, a willingness to be uncomfortable, a recognition that they don't deserve immediate forgiveness or access to you just because they've finally figured out what you knew all along. They're seeing the pattern of their own behavior now, how they consistently chose the path of least resistance, how they gave you breadcrumbs when you offered a feast, how they showed up at 50% when you were giving 100. They're recognizing that it wasn't that they couldn't love you properly. It's that they didn't. They had the capacity. They lacked the maturity, the awareness, the willingness to be uncomfortable for the sake of something real. And here's the spiritual dimension of what's happening. Your withdrawal created a vacuum. When you were present, your love, your energy, your effort, it filled so much space in their life that they couldn't see it. It was like oxygen. Everywhere, essential but invisible until it's gone. Your absence isn't just physical, it's energetic. They're feeling the hole where your light used to shine. The universe has a way of teaching us what we took for granted by removing it. Not as punishment, but as education. Your pulling away wasn't just you protecting yourself. It was the universe saying, let them feel the fullness of this loss so they can understand the fullness of this love. They're understanding now that you didn't pull away because you stopped caring. You pulled away because you cared too much to watch yourself diminish. You pulled away because staying was costing you pieces of yourself. You pulled away because you finally loved yourself enough to stop accepting less than you deserved. Before we go further, I want to acknowledge those of you who have contributed to this channel through super thanks. Your support keeps this space alive and allows these messages to reach the people who need them most. Thank you for being part of this community. This is where it gets really important. Their understanding is real, and their desire to fight for what they lost is genuine. But you need to know that your healing isn't dependent on their awakening. You don't need their validation to confirm that walking away was the right choice. Their regret doesn't erase the pain they caused. Their clarity now doesn't change the confusion you endured then. You're at a crossroads, and the path forward isn't obvious. Part of you might feel vindicated. Finally, they see it. Part of you might feel hopeful. Maybe this time will be different. Part of you might feel cautious. How do I know this is real? And part of you might feel tired. I've already moved on. Why is this happening now? All of these responses are valid. Hold them without judgment. You're allowed to feel multiple truths at once. What's crucial is that you don't make decisions from the wound they created. Don't go back just to prove you were right about their potential. Don't re-engage just because it feels good to be chosen after being dismissed. Don't open the door again simply because they're finally knocking the way you always wished they would. The question isn't, are they different? The question is, what does my peace require? The question isn't, do they finally get it? The question is, what does my healing need? The question isn't, should I give them another chance? The question is, what is my spirit calling me toward? Keep watching, because we're about to explore the deeper dimensions of why this is happening now, what it means for your journey, and how to navigate this with the wisdom you've earned through everything you've been through. Now we need to talk about the why behind this shift. Why now? Why this intensity and what it reveals about both their journey and yours. There's a spiritual timing to everything, and their awakening isn't random. You pulling away set something in motion in the invisible realm. When you chose yourself, when you said no more, when you created distance, you didn't just change your circumstances. You changed the energetic contract between you. You stopped pouring into a cup that refused to hold water. You stopped giving your light to someone who wouldn't honor it. And that shift sent ripples through everything connected to this relationship. Think about what was happening before you pulled away. You were probably trying to make them understand through your words, through your pain, through your repeated expressions of what you needed. You were explaining, pleading, hoping they'd wake up before you had to walk away. But words without consequences don't land. Explanations without boundaries don't create change. They could ignore your voice because your presence remained constant, but your absence. That's a language even the most emotionally unavailable person eventually understands. Silence speaks what words couldn't. Space reveals what proximity obscured. Your withdrawal removed the safety net they didn't know they were standing on. Here's what happened in the spiritual realm when you pulled away. You reclaimed your energy. All the love, effort, hope, and investment you were pouring into them, you redirected it back to yourself. And when you did that, you started glowing differently. Not because you were trying to make them jealous or prove a point, but because you were finally nourishing your own soul. You were watering your own garden instead of trying to make flowers grow in their soil. Drop the word reclaimed if you felt yourself coming back to yourself after walking away. This is sacred ground we're standing on together, and they felt that shift. Maybe not consciously at first, but energetically. They felt the withdrawal of your light. They felt the absence of your investment. They felt themselves suddenly having to face who they are without the buffer of your love, making everything softer, easier, more bearable. This is crucial to understand. People don't usually appreciate what they have while they have it if they've never had to live without it. You being consistently present, consistently loving, consistently available, it allowed them to take you for granted without consequence. It's not that they didn't care. It's that they didn't have to care in a way that cost them anything. Your love was free, abundant, always there. And human nature being what it is, we rarely value what comes without price. But now they're paying the price of their own negligence. And the cost is your absence. The bill came due, and they're feeling the weight of what they owe and can never fully repay. Let's talk about what they're noticing specifically, because this will help you recognize whether what you're sensing is real or wishful thinking. They're noticing how much lighter their life felt when you were in it. Not because you fixed their problems or made everything perfect, but because you cared, you showed up. You were invested in their well-being. They didn't have to question whether you'd be there. Now they're surrounded by people who are friendly, but not committed, interested, but not invested. They're feeling the difference between casual connection and genuine love. And it's stark. They're noticing how you saw potential in them that no one else could see. You believed in versions of them they hadn't even become yet. You encouraged their dreams when others were practical and dismissive. You celebrated their small wins when others barely noticed. They took that as baseline treatment, but now they understand it was exceptional grace. They're noticing their own patterns more clearly now. They're seeing how they repeat the same cycles with other people. The emotional unavailability, the hot and cold behavior, the taking without reciprocating. They're recognizing that what happened between you wasn't just about circumstance or compatibility. It was about their choices, their immaturity, their refusal to do the work required for real intimacy. This might be the first time in their life they're taking genuine accountability instead of making excuses or blaming external factors. They're looking in the mirror and saying, I did this. I caused this. I lost them through my own actions. That's not a small thing. That's character development in real time. If you've been blessed by this message so far and want to support the creation of more content like this, the Super Thanks option is available. Your contribution, whatever the amount, helps me dedicate time to these deep explorations. Completely optional, but deeply appreciated. Now let's talk about the fight they're ready to wage. This language of fighting for love is significant. It implies effort, persistence, sacrifice, discomfort. It implies they're willing to do what they weren't willing to do before. They're ready to have the hard conversations they avoided. They're ready to examine their wounds instead of protecting their ego. They're ready to make themselves uncomfortable for the sake of your peace. They're ready to prove through consistent action, not just passionate words, that they've changed. But here's what you need to discern. Is this readiness coming from transformation or desperation? Is this about them genuinely becoming someone new, or is this about them not being able to tolerate the discomfort of loss? This distinction matters enormously. Transformation is evidenced by changed behavior across the board, not just with you, but in all their relationships. It's shown by them doing the internal work, even when you're not watching. It's demonstrated by humility, patience, and respect for whatever you decide. They're not fighting to win you back like a prize. They're fighting to prove they're worthy of standing beside you as an equal. Desperation, on the other hand, looks like intensity without substance. Big gestures without daily follow-through. Promises without pattern change. Love bombing without genuine accountability. Pressure for you to decide quickly before you have time to see if the change is real. You'll know the difference by how their pursuit makes you feel. Does it feel like relief and possibility? Or does it feel like pressure and anxiety? Does it create space for your healing? Or does it demand you prioritize their feelings again? Does it honor your pace? Or does it rush you toward reconciliation before you're ready? Your body knows the truth even when your mind is conflicted. That tightness in your chest when you think about re-engaging, listen to it. That sense of peace when you maintain your boundaries, honor it. That whisper in your spirit saying not yet or not this. Trust it, because here's what I'm seeing for many of you. Their awakening isn't necessarily about you getting back together. It might be about you receiving confirmation that you were right to walk away. It might be about them finally giving you the acknowledgement you deserved all along, which allows you to close this chapter with clarity rather than questions. It might be about both of you healing separately, so that whether you reconnect or not, you both become more whole. The universe doesn't always bring people back together. Sometimes it brings them to mutual understanding so both can move forward without the weight of unfinished business. Sometimes the fight they're ready to wage is the fight to prove they've learned the lesson, not to recreate the relationship, and that might sting to hear if part of you was hoping this would lead to reunion. But I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to speak what your soul needs to know. This moment, this awakening they're having, this readiness they're expressing, it's significant. It's meaningful. It validates everything you felt and knew. But its purpose in your story might not be what you initially think. Stay open to what the universe is actually orchestrating, not just what your hurt heart hoped would happen. Don't go anywhere. What I'm about to share next will help you see the bigger picture of what's unfolding, not just between you and them, but within you and for you. Let me take you deeper into what this moment is revealing about you and your journey, because that's where the real power of this situation lives. Your decision to pull away, That wasn't weakness. That wasn't giving up. That wasn't you being unable to handle difficulty. That was you finally honoring the truth your spirit had been speaking for longer than you want to admit. That was you choosing dignity over desperation. That was you saying, I matter too much to keep diminishing myself for someone who won't meet me where I am. Do you understand how much strength that took? In a world that constantly tells us to fight for love, to never give up, to keep trying, to be patient, you chose the harder path. You chose the path that looked like quitting to everyone else, but felt like survival to you. You chose yourself when it would have been easier to keep choosing them. And now their awakening is reflecting back to you the magnitude of what you did. Their regret is confirming what you already knew, but maybe doubted. You weren't asking for too much. You weren't being unreasonable. You weren't expecting the impossible. You were simply requiring basic respect, consistent effort, and genuine reciprocity. The fact that they couldn't provide that says everything about where they were, nothing about your worthiness. If you're sitting here realizing how much courage it took to walk away, type strength in the comments. Own it, celebrate it. You did what many people never find the courage to do. Here's what this moment is teaching you about your own value. You are not someone's maybe. You are not someone's when I'm ready. You are not someone's let me see if I can find better first. You are someone's absolutely, fully right now with everything I have. Their inability to show up for you properly was never evidence of your lack. It was evidence of their limitation. And now that they're growing past that limitation and seeing you clearly, you get to decide if that growth came too late or just in time. But either way, your value was never in question. It was constant. It was inherent. It was there before they recognized it, and it remains, regardless of what happens next. This situation is also revealing something profound about divine timing and spiritual protection. When you were in the thick of it, when you were hurting, confused, feeling unwanted and unappreciated, you probably couldn't see the bigger picture. You probably questioned why someone you loved so much couldn't love you back the way you needed. You probably wondered what was wrong with you, that you weren't enough to inspire their best effort. But look at what had to happen for you to get to this place of empowerment. You had to hurt enough to choose differently. You had to get tired enough to stop accommodating. You had to love yourself more than you feared being alone. And if they had shown up properly back then, you never would have developed this unshakable knowing of your worth. You would have settled. You would have accepted breadcrumbs and called it a feast. You would have made excuses for their mediocrity and called it love. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, allowed you to experience exactly what you needed to experience to become who you're becoming. Their failure to love you properly was never the universe forgetting about you. It was the universe protecting you from settling while simultaneously preparing you for something more aligned. For those who have supported this channel through super thanks, your generosity helps messages like this reach the people who need them most. Thank you for being part of this mission. Every contribution, large or small, makes this work possible. Now, let's talk about what you're becoming through this process. Because this is where the transformation lives. You're becoming someone who knows the difference between potential and reality. You're no longer falling in love with who someone could be while ignoring who they actually are. You're no longer auditioning for a role in someone's life, hoping they'll finally see you as worthy. You're standing in your worth as fact, not as something to be proven. You're becoming someone who understands that love without respect is incomplete. That chemistry without commitment is hollow. That words without actions are just pretty lies. You're developing discernment that will serve you for the rest of your life. The ability to see people clearly, not through the filter of your hope or their potential, but as they actually show up. You're becoming someone who can hold your ground even when it hurts. Who can maintain boundaries even when guilt creeps in. Who can choose your peace over someone else's comfort. This is sacred strength. This is the kind of power that changes everything about how you move through relationships going forward. You're becoming someone who doesn't need closure. From the person who hurt you to find peace within yourself. You're learning that you can grant yourself the permission to move on. the validation of your experience, the acknowledgement that you deserved better. You don't need them to say it, though it's meaningful that they're saying it now, because you've already said it to yourself. And perhaps most importantly, you're becoming someone who understands that walking away from what's not right is how you make space for what is. Every time you honor your boundaries, you're telling the universe, I'm ready for better. I'm available for real. I won't settle for almost. And the universe hears that. The universe responds to that. So when they come back now, ready to fight, ready to prove themselves, ready to be who they should have been, you're meeting that energy from a completely different place than you were before. You're not the same person who left. You've been transformed by the space between. You've been refined by your choice to honor yourself. You've been elevated by your willingness to let go. And from this elevated place, you can see more clearly. You can assess more accurately. You can decide more wisely. You're not deciding from lack or fear or the wound of abandonment. You're deciding from wholeness, from clarity, from connection to your own inner wisdom. This is the gift hiding inside the pain. This is the breakthrough disguised as breakdown. This is the elevation that could only come through the devastation of losing something you thought you couldn't live without, and discovering not only that you could live without it, but that you could thrive. Their awakening is significant. But your awakening is the main event. The transformation is noteworthy. But your transformation is the miracle. Their readiness to fight is admirable. But your refusal to accept less than you deserve anymore is revolutionary. You are not the same person they lost. You are not the same person they took for granted. You are not the same person they dismissed. And that changes everything about what's possible now, whether that possibility includes them or not. Hold on. Because what comes next is going to help you navigate this moment with practical wisdom that honors both where you've been and where you're going. Now let's talk about what to actually do with this situation. Because understanding is powerful, but application is where transformation lives. First, don't rush your decision. The intensity of their awakening might create pressure for you to decide quickly. They might be expressing urgency, wanting to know if there's a chance, needing to understand where you stand. And you might feel internal pressure too. Part of you wants to resolve this, to either commit to reconciliation or completely close the door. Resist this urgency. You don't owe anyone a timeline for your healing or your decision-making. The fact that they're ready now doesn't mean you have to be ready. They operated on their timeline when they were taking you for granted. You get to operate on yours now that they're seeking you back. Take the space you need. Sit with what you're feeling. Notice what comes up when you imagine re-engaging versus moving forward without them. Pay attention to your body's wisdom. Does the thought of reconnecting create expansion or contraction? Does it feel like coming home or returning to a place you've outgrown? Second, observe patterns, not promises. Listen, anyone can make promises in a moment of regret. Anyone can say the right things when they're feeling the loss acutely. What you need to pay attention to is not what they're saying, but what they're consistently doing over time. If they're genuinely transformed, you'll see evidence beyond their words to you. You'll see them taking responsibility without deflection or excuses, respecting your boundaries without guilt-tripping, doing internal work, therapy, self-reflection, growth, without you having to prompt it, showing patience with your process rather than rushing you, demonstrating changed behavior in other areas of their life, not just with you, being honest about their limitations instead of over-promising. Real change is a pattern, not a performance. It's consistent over months, not just intense for weeks. It shows up in the mundane moments, not just the dramatic gestures. It's evidenced by who they're becoming as a person, not just how they're pursuing you. Third, protect your peace above everything. This is non-negotiable. Your peace is sacred. And nothing, not love, not potential, not their transformation, not the hope of what could be, is worth sacrificing it for. If engaging with them even in conversation, disrupts the equilibrium you've worked so hard to create. You're allowed to maintain distance regardless of how much they've changed. If their presence brings up old wounds that aren't healed enough yet, you're allowed to say not now, or even not ever. Your first commitment is to yourself. Your first loyalty is to your own well-being. Your first responsibility is your own healing. Anyone truly transformed will understand and respect this. Anyone still operating from ego will push against your boundaries and make it about their feelings. Type peace if you're committing to prioritizing your well-being regardless of what they want or need. This is the foundation everything else builds on. Fourth, get clear on what you actually want, not what would make them happy, not what would ease the tension, not what would feel romantic or poetic. What do you actually want? Do you want them back? Be honest with yourself. Is it them specifically, or is it the validation of being chosen, the relief of not starting over, the comfort of the familiar? Do you want closure and release? Maybe their awakening is the final piece you needed to fully let go without lingering questions. Do you want time and space to see if change is real? Maybe you're open to the possibility, but need to see sustained transformation before you risk your heart again. Do you want to move forward separately, grateful for the lessons but clear that the chapter is closed? Maybe you've already grieved and healed and are genuinely ready for something new. There's no right answer here. There's only your answer. And getting clear on what you genuinely want, not what you think you should want, is essential for making decisions aligned with your truth. Fifth, consider what reconciliation would actually require if you're open to exploring reconnection. Get brutally honest about what would need to be true for that to work. You can't go back to what was. That's already dead, and for good reason. Forward movement would require new agreements about communication, effort, and priorities, clear boundaries that protect your peace and growth, demonstrated follow-through, not just talked about intentions, professional support, therapy, coaching. If old patterns run deep, time to rebuild trust through consistent action, willingness from both of you to be different people than you were. Reconciliation, if it happens, can't be about returning to what was comfortable. It has to be about co-creating something new that honors who you've both become. And that's hard work. It requires vulnerability, humility, and sustained commitment from both people. Are they willing to do that work? Are you willing to do that work? Not in theory, but in practice, in the boring, uncomfortable daily reality of it. Sixth, trust your intuition over your emotions. Your emotions are valid, but they're not always reliable guides for decision-making, especially when trauma and attachment wounds are involved. Your intuition, that deep knowing that sits beneath the noise of fear and hope and longing, that's your compass. It's the still, quiet voice that knows the truth even when your heart is screaming something else. Practice getting quiet enough to hear it. Journal, meditate, walk in nature. Create space between their pursuit and your response. In that space, your intuition will speak. It might say, give this a chance. It might say, this chapter is complete. It might say, not yet, but maybe someday. It might say, this isn't about them at all. This is about you learning to trust yourself. Whatever it says, trust it. Your intuition has been right about every major thing in your life, including when it told you to walk away in the first place. Seventh, remember that you get to change. Your mind, maybe you're open to exploring reconnection now. That doesn't mean you're committed to making it work if the reality doesn't match the promise. You can start a conversation and end it if you realize it's not serving you. You can give someone a chance and revoke it if they fall back into old patterns, or maybe you're firm in your closure now. That doesn't mean you can never reconsider if genuine transformation continues over time and your healing reaches a place where you're open to it. You're allowed to be in process. You're allowed to not have all the answers. You're allowed to feel multiple things at once. You're allowed to move slowly and change direction as new information emerges. The only thing you're not allowed to do is betray yourself. The only thing you're not allowed to do is diminish your worth to make someone else comfortable. The only thing you're not allowed to do is forget how hard you fought to get to this place of clarity and peace. Before we close, I want to thank those of you who've supported this channel through Super Thanks. Your contributions make it possible for me to continue creating these deep, meaningful explorations. If this message has touched your heart and you're in a position to support, the option is there. If not, your presence here is enough. You are enough. Whatever you decide, reconciliation, closure, more time, clean break, make sure it's your decision, made from your truth, honoring your journey. Make sure it's not a reaction to their intensity or a response to pressure or a surrender to guilt. Make sure it's a choice that 5 years from now you'll look back on and say, yes, that was aligned with who I was becoming. You've come too far to compromise your growth now. You've learned too much to unlearn it for comfort. You've become too clear to cloud your vision with what used to be. Their fight for you matters. But your fight for yourself matters more. Always. So here we are, at the place where understanding meets action, where awakening meets choice, where their transformation meets your sovereignty. They finally understand why you pulled away. They see what they lost. They recognize what they took for granted. They're ready to fight for the love they once dismissed. This is significant. This is real. This validates everything you felt and knew. But beautiful soul, here's what I need you to carry with you as you navigate whatever comes next. Their awakening doesn't diminish yours. Their growth doesn't erase your journey. Their readiness doesn't override your timeline. Their transformation doesn't obligate your return. You pulled away because you had to. Not because you wanted to hurt them. Not because you stopped caring. Not because you gave up too easily. You pulled away because staying was costing you yourself. And that decision, that choice to honor your own worth even when it hurt, that's what set all of this in motion. Your withdrawal created the conditions for their awakening. Your boundaries became their teacher. Your absence became their mirror. And now they're seeing clearly what they couldn't see when you were close enough to touch. Some of you watching this are going to choose to explore reconciliation. You're going to step carefully back toward this person, curious about who they're becoming, open to the possibility that this time could be different. And if that's your path, walk it with wisdom. Require evidence, not just apology. Expect consistency, not just intensity. Protect your peace, even as you explore potential. If you're considering giving this another chance, type wisdom in the comments, not as permission-seeking, but as declaration that you'll move forward with clarity and self-protection. Some of you are going to choose closure. You're going to honor their awakening, appreciate their growth, acknowledge that their recognition of what they lost matters, and still choose to move forward without them. You're going to understand that sometimes people change into who we needed them to be just a little too late. You're going to release them with love while remaining committed to your own path. And if that's your choice, own it fully. You're not being unforgiving or closed off or unable to let people grow. You're being true to yourself and what your spirit knows you need. Some of you aren't ready to decide yet. You're sitting in the uncertainty, holding both the possibility of reconnection and the power of release, not yet sure which direction serves your highest good. And that's completely acceptable. Stay there as long as you need. The right choice will emerge when you're ready to see it clearly. And some of you, this is important, some of you are realizing that this video isn't actually about them at all. You clicked on it thinking about a specific person, but what you're really receiving is confirmation of your own transformation. You're seeing that you've already moved on more than you realized. You're recognizing that their awakening is interesting but not urgent to you anymore. You're noticing that what once would have sent you spinning now leaves you centered. That's growth, beloved. That's evidence that the work you've been doing is working. Whatever category you fall into, whatever decision emerges, whatever path calls to you, make sure it honors the person you've become through this process. Make sure it respects the boundaries you've learned to set. Make sure it protects the peace you've fought to create. Make sure it aligns with your truth, not their wants. Because here's what this whole experience has been teaching you. You are capable of loving deeply and walking away when love isn't reciprocated properly. You are capable of honoring someone's potential without sacrificing yourself, waiting for them to reach it. You are capable of receiving someone's awakening without letting it dictate your next move. You are capable of being soft and strong simultaneously. This moment, their understanding, their readiness, their fight, it's a mirror being held up to show you how far you've come. Look at who you were when you were still trying to make it work. Look at how much you tolerated. Look at how small you made yourself. Look at how you twisted your needs into smaller, more digestible requests, hoping that if you asked for less, they'd finally give you something. And now look at who you are, standing in your worth, clear about your value, unwilling to negotiate your peace, capable of receiving their regret without letting it determine your reality. That's not who you were when this started. That's who you've become. Share one word that describes who you're becoming through this journey. Let's celebrate the transformation happening in this community. The universe has been orchestrating all of this, the pain that drove you away, the space that allowed both of you to grow, their awakening that validates your experience, and this moment where you get to choose from power instead of from wound. None of it was wasted. None of it was punishment. All of it was preparation, whether this story ends in reunion or release, in reconciliation or revolution, in them being part of your next chapter or a completed chapter in your past. You win. Because you've already won the most important battle, the battle to remain true to yourself, even when love was on the line. They may have finally understood why you pulled away, and they may be ready to fight for what they lost, but you've understood something even more profound, that you are worth fighting for, that your presence is a gift, not a given, that your love is sacred, not sacrificial, and that choosing yourself is never the wrong choice even when it hurts. So as you move forward from this moment, carry this truth. You didn't pull away because you were weak. You pulled away because you were becoming strong. You didn't give up on love. You gave up on accepting less than love in its fullness. You didn't fail at this relationship. You succeeded at honoring yourself and their awakening. It's not the beginning of your story. It's confirmation that your story was always unfolding exactly as it needed to. It's validation that you were right all along. It's evidence that your standards weren't too high, the effort was too low. It's proof that choosing yourself creates ripples that reach further than you can see. Walk forward with your head high and your heart protected. Walk forward knowing you are not the same person they lost. Walk forward understanding that whether they've changed or not doesn't change the fact that you have. Walk forward trusting that whatever is meant for you, whether it's restoration with them or something entirely new, it's already making its way to you. The love you've been looking for. It starts with the love you give yourself. The fight you've been waiting for. It starts with you fighting for your own peace. The understanding you've been craving. It starts with you understanding your own worth. They finally see you clearly. But more importantly, you finally see yourself clearly. And that changes everything. You are loved. You are seen. You are valued. You are becoming exactly who you're meant to be. And nothing, not their regret, not their readiness, not their transformation, not even their most sincere fight, is more important than you continuing to honor that truth. If this message met you exactly where you needed to be met, if it spoke to something in your soul that needed words, if it gave you clarity or courage or confirmation, consider leaving a comment, sharing what landed deepest for you. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you're able to support this work through super thanks, know that your generosity allows these messages to continue reaching the people who need them most. Whatever you decide it from love. Love for yourself first, and then love for what could be. Decide it from wisdom earned through pain, transformed into growth. Decide it from the centered place you've worked so hard to reach. They're ready to fight for the love they lost, but you've already won the love that matters most, the love you've finally learned to give. Yourself, and that, beloved soul, is the real victory in this story. Everything else is just details. Trust yourself. Honor your journey. Protect your peace. You know what to do.